fired after 22 years for being too expensive. What happened 6 months later shocked everyone. Before we begin, let me ask you something. What do you do when the life you built, every bolt tightened, every shift covered, every life protected is dismissed with a signature and a cardboard box? What happens when you've spent more than 2 decades preventing disasters, and then they quietly set the stage for one without you? My name is Ethan McAllister. I'm 59 years old, and up until recently, I was lead foreman at Western Plains Manufacturing in Tulsa. For 22 years, I kept that factory floor running like a symphony. No major accidents, not one. Every press, every hydraulic unit, every custom-built valve, we built them for oil refineries across the country. One mistake, and somebody miles away could lose a hand, or worse. So we didn't make mistakes. Monday morning. Bright sky coffee, still too hot to drink. Patricia from HR asked me to step into the conference room. I knew something was off, the kind of silence that has an edge to it. Leonard Wright was already seated. New operations director. 4 months in. White shirt, polished watch hands that had never once pulled a jammed belt off a gear shaft. Ethan Patricia started the company's moving toward a leaner operational model. We're streamlining leadership roles. Leonard nodded like a bobblehead. Market pressure, efficiency. We're restructuring, and your position will be transitioned. A folder slid across the table. Severance package. Terms. Conditions. 2 weeks to train the person taking over my role. I didn't open the folder right away. I just looked at the logo on the cover. Clean, modern corporate. They'd updated it last year. Didn't even tell the floor team. Just changed it. That's when I understood. They didn't want a foreman. They wanted a spreadsheet. Your replacement starts tomorrow. Patricia added, voice smooth, like it was weather forecast. His name's Jason Weber. Business degree from OSU, very promising. I gave a small nod and stared at the grain of the conference table. I could hear the shop floor buzzing on the other side of the wall. Machines I'd tuned, people I'd trained. For 22 years, I built the maintenance schedules, the safety procedures. I trained every lead operator. I helped write the manuals. 346 workers had gone home safely under my watch. Not all places can say that. I understand, I said. Leonard let out a breath, like he'd just avoided a confrontation. Patricia smiled, like she'd done me a favor. That night, I didn't take the highway home. I drove the long way past the riverfront, where the old refineries used to hum before they shut down. My father worked there back when hard hats meant something. He used to say, "Son, a man's value isn't what he says, it's what he builds." And I had built something, not just output, a culture, a standard, a shield. Now I had 2 weeks to hand it over to a kid who'd never heard a pressure valve groan before it failed. I pulled into the driveway, took off my boots at the door. 22 years of factory grime in the treads. You can't scrub that away. I called Frank, retired last year after 35 on the floor. They're letting me go, I told him. Those bastards, he spat. You gonna raise hell, I paused. No, I said. They'll do that themselves. Because, here's the thing, They didn't realize you can train someone to run numbers, but you can't train instincts in 2 weeks. You can't teach a machine to whisper to someone who's never listened. I started at Western Plains when my son Ethan Jr. was still in diapers. My wife Jennifer and I had been married 4 years. That job gave us everything: stability, insurance, a future. I worked every holiday that first year, got promoted to shift lead by year 3, foreman by year 10, took over lead when Jack Thompson retired. That floor became my second home. I could tell when a belt needed tightening just by the hum, could smell when the hydraulic fluid was starting to turn, could walk past a press and know without looking if the ambient temperature was 2 degrees off. It wasn't magic. It was time. Time you can't fast track with a degree and a tablet. Jennifer used to say I cared more about the factory than our kitchen. Maybe she was right. She left a decade ago, took Ethan Jr. to British Columbia. I didn't fight it. I stayed, kept the line running. Someone had to. The company changed hands twice. The first time they left us alone. The second time, Axiom Partners, everything became numbers. Budgets trimmed, maintenance intervals, stretched parts outsourced. But we kept it safe. Barely. Then Leonard showed up with his MBA and a smile that didn't touch his eyes. He gave his first floor meeting with words like data-driven and performance metrics. Afterward, Diego, my lead machinist, pulled me aside. "Kenny, he said that guy's going to get someone hurt." I told him we'd manage, like we always did. But deep down, I already knew. So that night, after Patricia and Leonard gave me the folder, I started a new notebook. I wrote down everything they were about to forget. Then I made 4 phone calls: Diego, Alicia, Sam Russell. I told them, when things change, and they will don't tell management, call me. I wasn't planning revenge. I was building a record. They thought I was gone. But I was still listening, still watching, still waiting. Because some mistakes you can only see once the man who would have stopped them isn't there to stop them anymore. And I knew. That moment was coming. It started with a sound, not a bang, not a scream, just a change in pitch. The number 3 press, normally steady, confident, gave a little cough mid-cycle. Diego noticed. He always noticed. He'd been my eyes and ears on that floor longer than some of those new hires had been out of school. 3 weeks had passed since my last shift. I was at home sanding the legs on an old cedar bench when my phone buzzed. It was Diego. "Press 3's skipping again," he said. "Not throwing errors yet, but it doesn't feel right." "You log it?" I asked. "Of course. But Sam already got told to ignore it unless it shuts down." Budget priorities. I wiped my hands on a rag and stared out the window. My tools were in perfect order. My garage was spotless. But something in me knew things back at Western Plains were about to get messy. 2 days later, Sam called me. Voice tight, like he didn't want to be overheard. "They denied my parts order," he said. "Backup generator needs replacement fuses. Not urgent, they say." "Write it down," I told him. "Take photos if you can." "Already have." That was the moment I knew the quiet cracks were forming beneath the surface. And in time, quiet cracks always grow louder. In the 4th week, I reached out formally. I sent an email to Leonard and Patricia. Professional. Measured. I said I'd heard of some protocol changes, and given my experience with those systems, I was willing to consult if needed. Patricia replied within an hour. Polite. Corporate. Thank you for your concern, Ethan. The transition has been smooth. Jason's implemented several improvements already. We'll reach out if your insight is needed. That told me everything. Translation. Stay in your lane. We've got this. But they didn't. Week 6. The first shutdown. Minor belt slip. 2-hour delay. No injuries, no panic. Just enough to make the night shift sweat. Week 7. A small hydraulic leak went unnoticed for hours, soaked half the supply bay. Week 8-3. Separate electrical issues in 1 week. Russell called after each one. They're blaming the equipment, he said. Told Jason the machines are outdated. That equipment ran like clockwork, I said. Until they stopped treating it that way. They fired Sam last week. He added almost a whisper. Said he was resistant to change. I didn't respond. I just sat there, phone to my ear, heart sinking. Sam was one of the last people who knew those machines inside and out. Losing him wasn't just a bad move. It was dangerous. Anyone hurt yet? I asked. Not yet, Russell said. But yesterday, a guard on the cutting line jammed. Russell almost lost a hand. They logged it as operator error. I felt something inside me turn cold. That wasn't just neglect anymore. That was rewriting the truth to hide the cost of it. The next morning, I called the safety board, told them about the changes, the patterns, the denials. I kept it matter of fact. Helen Barnes took the call, same inspector who'd come through 5 years back. We'll conduct an unannounced inspection in the next 2 weeks, she said. Thank you, I told her. They won't see it coming. And they didn't. 3 days later, Diego called me whispering. They know, he said. Someone tipped them off. I straightened up in my chair. What's happening? They've got us working doubles, cleaning everything. Jason's rewriting maintenance logs. They're prepping like an audit's tomorrow. It was. That afternoon, I got a knock at the door. A man in a gray suit handed me an envelope. Western Plains Manufacturing had issued a cease and desist. They accused me of interfering with operations violating non-disclosure terms, threatened legal action if I didn't cease spreading false information about company procedures. I didn't even flinch. I just called Bill Henderson, my lawyer of 12 years. They're bluffing, Bill said after reading it. You haven't shared anything proprietary, but they want you scared. This is about pressure. Can they stop the inspection? Not a chance. Once the board's involved, it happens. But Ethan, he paused. Be careful. These guys don't play fair. He didn't have to tell me that. I'd worked under them long enough to know. Western Plains passed the inspection. Barely. Helen called me afterward. They fixed the surface issues, she said, but I noted inconsistencies in logs. Some employees felt rehearsed. Will there be penalties? Minor ones. Nothing serious. They cleaned just enough to skate by. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there, staring at the phone in my hand. They were going to get away with it. They were going to keep cutting corners. Only this time, more carefully. I needed more than inspections. I needed a reckoning. That weekend, Russell knocked on my door. He was holding a thumb drive and looking over his shoulder. You need to see this, he said. Inside were 2 sets of logs, real ones, and the fake ones they'd created for the audit, plus internal emails from Leonard, from corporate. Charts comparing projected safety costs versus investor return. And one email I'll never forget from a partner at Axiom Insurance covers accidents. Missed earnings cost us capital. That wasn't efficiency. That was gambling with lives. Russell showed me more. Jason had denied 5 separate maintenance requests on the press line, all marked defer to next quarter per budget constraints. Then Russell showed me a photo. A young man, barely 19, lying in a hospital bed, missing 2 fingers. The guard that failed Jason had marked it non-critical. They were trying to make the kid sign liability waivers while he was still on pain meds. That was the moment the weight shifted. This wasn't just my fight anymore. It was about every hand I'd ever shaken on that floor. Every face that trusted me to keep them safe. I'd tried to warn them. I'd tried to help. Now I was done asking. The moment I saw that photo, Alicia's nephew in that hospital bed, 2 fingers gone, I stopped hoping they'd fix themselves. I knew they wouldn't. Western Plains didn't fear warnings. They feared exposure. So I stopped warning. And I started preparing. I called Diego first, then Alicia, then 6 more from my old crew. We met at Frank's place just outside town. Neutral ground. Frank made coffee like it was a union meeting. No one spoke much until I laid it all. The fake logs, the deleted reports, the internal emails Russell had saved. The kid in the hospital. No one blinked. Just clenched jaws, quiet nods. So what do we do? Diego asked. Go to the media, Alicia added. I shook my head. Not yet. They'll spin it. Say it's one rogue employee, one mistake. Then what? Frank asked. We get leverage. I handed each of them an envelope. Inside, simple instructions. What to document. When. What not to touch. Everyone knew the risk. They'll fire us if they catch us, Russell said. I know, I said. So don't get caught. Be patient. Be smart. The next morning, I reached out to George Lawson, now head of operations at Meridian Energy Solutions. Meridian was Western Plains' biggest client. George and I had history. I helped spec their first pressure system a decade ago. We met at a diner off Highway 169. Quiet booth, black coffee. I heard you left, George said, shaking my hand. Figured you were retired. Not quite, I said. Then I showed him the pictures. Faulty valves, stress fractures, inspection tags marked as past. George's face darkened. These were shipped to us last month. He leaned back. You sure I built that line, George? I know what it's supposed to look like. He didn't say yes, didn't say no, just slid the photos back toward me. We'll look into it. That was enough. Step 1, activate the client. Step 2, go deeper with the safety board. This time, I gave Helen real documentation. Photos, timestamps, deleted logs recovered by Russell. This is substantial, she said. We'll escalate this. Step 3 was the most dangerous. I called Jason, told him to meet me somewhere off-site. No uniforms, no paper trail. He showed up, nervous, eyes tired, tie askew like he'd forgotten how to wear it. You said you had something important. I do, I said. But let me ask you something first. How's the floor running? He let out a breath. It's falling apart. Press failures, line delays, quotas missed 3 weeks in a row, corporate's on my back. I nodded. They tell you it was going to be this hard. They told me the systems were outdated, that I'd be modernizing things. But now, I'm just putting out fires. You're not the arsonist, Jason, but you're holding the lighter. He looked down. I didn't ask you here to blame you. I asked, because you have a choice. He looked up. I have records, I said. Logs, reports, internal memos, safety violations, and a teenager in the hospital because your team refused a $400 part replacement. Jason looked sick. I need you to confirm what I already know. Email chains, denied maintenance tickets, anything you sent up the ladder that got ignored. His voice cracked. They'll fire me. They might. But if someone dies, you'll live with that a lot longer. He didn't answer right away. I stood, slid a card across the table. You have 1 week. Text me if you're in. Don't if you're not. I won't follow up. 3 days passed, no word. Then at 11:43 p.m., I got a message. I'm in. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a case. It was a case study. Jason started forwarding everything, slowly, quietly. Requests denied, schedules skipped, safety override suggestions, budget memos, even internal jokes. One manager had emailed, "Let's just hope OSHA doesn't pop by." I compiled it all, labeled it, cross-referenced it, built a timeline. The picture was ugly, but more importantly, it was clear. And then the press failed. The #1 hydraulic press, the backbone of Western Plains. Catastrophic internal failure. Full line shut down. No injuries, thank God. But they couldn't meet delivery. Couldn't even diagnose the issue. And that's when my phone rang. 6:15 a.m. Ethan Leonard said, voice low and tight, "We need your help." I almost smiled. "Oh, main press is down. Production's halted. We're losing clients. Our techs can't fix it. Look, let's be direct. We're willing to bring you in, as a contractor, whatever your rate is." I leaned against the kitchen counter. $300 an hour, cash. I pick the team. I have full authority on repairs. And I want access to all logs 6 months back. Silence. Then fine. Just get us running again. I didn't answer right away. I looked out the window at the sunrise breaking over the rooftops. "Leonard, yeah, I'm not coming to fix your mess." "Then what are you doing?" "I'm coming to show you exactly where it started." When I pulled into the Western Plains parking lot that morning, it felt like stepping into a ghost story I knew by heart. Same cracked asphalt, same faded paint lines. But the silence, it was louder than I remembered. Production was frozen. Workers stood in clusters, nervously checking their watches. The massive hydraulic press, the one we used to call Big Iron, sat dark and still like a broken monument. I hadn't seen it offline in over a decade. Jason met me by the loading bay. He looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. Shirt untucked, grease on his hands. No tablet this time. "Thank God you're here," he said. I didn't waste time. "Walk me through it." He tried, but I already knew. The damage was deeper than bolts or belts. This wasn't a mechanical failure. It was a systems failure, built one denial, one shortcut at a time. I stepped onto the factory floor and felt it immediately. Like a musician hearing a song off key. Vibration patterns wrong, air circulation weaker, grease where it didn't belong. and people, good people, looking over their shoulders like they were expecting someone to blame. Leonard wasn't on the floor. Of course not. He was in the observation office upstairs, probably checking numbers. I didn't go see him. Instead, I called Diego, Alicia, and Russell. They showed up like they never left. We geared up, pulled out diagnostic tools, and got to work. And when I say work, I don't mean just turning wrenches. I mean rebuilding discipline. One checklist at a time. First thing I did was shut down every secondary line. I could feel the resistance from upper management just through the radio static. "Why are we halting the auxiliary?" one of the junior execs asked. "Because the whole plant breathes through this press," I said. "And right now, it's suffocating." Jason followed us everywhere, watching closely. He didn't say much, but he listened, which was more than I could say for the last 3 people in his position. By midday, we had the diagnostics logged. 7 mechanical failures, 4 of them avoidable with routine maintenance. 3 more caused by inferior replacement parts. Safety interlocks had been bypassed in the control software, probably to save seconds per cycle. That's when I called Leonard. He didn't pick up, so I climbed the stairs to his office. He looked up when I walked in, eyes bloodshot, tie loosened. "You fixing it?" he asked. I nodded. "But before I do, there's something you should see." I opened my tablet and pulled up a document, sent it to his inbox. "What's this?" Everything I said. Maintenance logs, denied requests, safety failures, photos, internal emails, and a list of every single violation reported to the safety board this week. I also sent it to Axiom Corporate and to Meridian Energy. His face went pale. "You can't." "I already did." He stood like he wanted to say something righteous, but there was nothing left to defend. "You said you wanted a leaner plant," I added. "You got it." "But this isn't lean. This is negligent. You don't understand the pressure." "No." I cut him off. "You don't understand the responsibility." I left him there, standing in the shell of an office he'd barely earned, staring at a storm he couldn't outrun. 3 days. That's how long it took us to fix the press. What should have been a 4-hour job dragged out because of years of shortcuts. But we got it done, properly, safely, and in those 3 days, everything else unraveled. Meridian suspended their contracts. The safety board arrived for a surprise audit this time with a federal compliance officer in tow. And Axiom. They sent their own investigators. Not the type that shake hands, the type that audit. Leonard was reassigned by the end of the week. Jason. He stayed, but they moved him under direct oversight. No more power plays, just checklists and the plant. The plant remembered, because as soon as we powered Big Iron back up, I could hear it, that smooth rhythm, that confident hum, like it knew the right hands were back. On the 3rd day, I got a call from Thomas Whitfield Corporate's new regional director. "Ethan," he said, "the board has reviewed your work, the documentation, the way you handled this crisis. Frankly, it's impressive." I waited. "We'd like to offer you the position of Director of Manufacturing Operations for Western Plains. Full authority. Salary 30% above your previous." an autonomy over safety and maintenance policy. I looked out my window. Sunlight bounced off the metal shop roofs. People were laughing again in the break zone. The place wasn't healed, but it was breathing again. And I said, "No." He paused. "May I ask why?" "Because the last time I worked here, they forgot my name the second I walked out the door." I let that sit for a moment, but I will consult. 3 days a week. My rate, my conditions. I'll train your people. Fix your systems. But I won't carry your badge. He was silent for a beat, then said, "That's acceptable." So I went back. Not for the paycheck, not for the title. I went back for Diego, for Alicia, for Russell, for Sam's legacy, for that 19-year-old kid who deserved better, and for the machines who, when treated with respect, return it in kind. Because after 22 years, I hadn't just built systems. I'd built a standard, and I wasn't going to let them destroy it. I still remember that first Monday morning after everything settled, the day I walked back onto the floor, not as an employee, but as something else entirely. A consultant, a contractor, an outsider, technically. But the machines didn't care about titles. Neither did the people who really mattered. Diego gave me a nod that said more than words could. Alicia smiled when I corrected a calibration off by 0.5 millimeters. Russell handed me the morning checklist like it had never left my hand. We didn't talk about Leonard, or the shutdown, or the kid who lost 2 fingers. We talked about the work, about getting it right. The floor hummed smoother that day, not because the equipment had changed, but because the people had. There was purpose again, not just urgency. There's a difference. Urgency cuts corners. Purpose keeps them square. The new operations director, Thomas Whitfield, kept his promise. No interference, no budgeting games. Just space to fix what needed fixing. The kind of space I'd begged for years ago. Funny, isn't it? They brought in outsiders to modernize us, to replace old ways. And when the new ways collapsed, they came back, hat in hand, to the people who'd kept it safe all along. I trained their new team myself, from the ground up. Safety wasn't just a binder anymore. It was gospel. We reintroduced pre-shift inspections, reinforced preventative maintenance. No more deferrals. No more next quarter. One afternoon, Jason stopped by my station. He stood there for a second holding a clipboard awkwardly. Just wanted to say, he hesitated. "You were right. About everything." I nodded. "You stayed. That says something." He exhaled. "They offered me a different job. Said I could walk away. But I figured maybe I needed to stay and learn how to do it right." That's the thing about consequences. They don't have to destroy you. Sometimes they sharpen you if you're willing to stand still long enough to face them. That was 6 months ago. Now, I work 3 days a week. I drink my coffee slow. I sand old wood on the back deck when the sun's out. Sometimes I catch myself listening to the birds the way I used to listen to hydraulic pistons, waiting for some imbalance, some warning. It's strange, adjusting to quiet. The phone doesn't buzz at 2 a.m. anymore. The crew doesn't need me every day. And maybe that's the greatest sign I did my job. I didn't stay for the paycheck. I didn't return for a title. I came back because when you've built something with your hands, your years, your integrity, there's a weight to it, a responsibility. They tried to throw that away once. Now, now they protect it. Last week, I got a letter from the board. Not a form letter, hand-signed, thanking me for reestablishing operational excellence at Western Plains. I read it once, smiled, and filed it away. Paper fades, but the sound of the floor running clean, that stays with you. Sometimes people ask if I'm bitter. No, not bitter, just clear. Clear on what matters. Clear on what breaks when people trade experience for efficiency. And crystal clear that systems can be rebuilt, but trust once lost has to be earned back inch by inch. So if you're watching this, maybe you're in your 50s. Maybe they just handed you a box. Maybe they told you, you've been great, but it's time for someone younger to take over. Let me tell you something. Don't let it break you. Let it sharpen you. Because sometimes they have to burn the blueprint before they realize who the real architect was. And when they come back looking for answers, don't yell. Just hand them a wrench and remind them the machine only runs when someone listens.